What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you the Season 4 finale of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show, as in case you have been living under a rock, we have ourselves a big-time guest. Who is this guest? Well, you're going to have to wait and see, because I'm going to build the suspense a little while longer. But we also have some high school volleyball to discuss, as the Ann Kang Tournament was rather surprising, as a former Set Point guest and his team did really well in that tournament. Also, how about the US U19 girls volleyball team winning the U19 Championships? Really impressive stuff on their part, as they had to pull out a 5-set thriller over Turkey. Also, this is the Season 4 finale, as I will be reflecting on all that happened in Season 4, as next week begins Season 5. So hand me a volleyball, set the net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez, bringing you the Season 4 finale of Set Point, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way to episode 207 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, we have ourselves a special guest. And where's that laundry list of accolades and accomplishments for this guy? Oh yeah, here it is. I don't think my guest needs an introduction, but we'll give him one. He is the head men's volleyball coach of the U.S. men's national team, and he's also the head coach of the 2023 national men's volleyball champion UCLA Bruins. He also is a former UC Irvine men's volleyball coach, where he won a national championship there. And he's also a graduate of UCLA, and he's got so many awards and accolades that I bet you it'll probably take like 30 minutes to get through it. But, ladies and gentlemen, the man that needs no true introduction, the one, the only, Mr. John Speraw! How are you doing, John?
Good, Teran. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, John. And thank you so much for being on the show. It really means a lot, and I'm excited to really have you aboard. So, without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, just want to get this out of the way. These are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and John Speraw, and not the thoughts and opinions of USA Volleyball, UCLA Men's Volleyball, or UCLA entirely, or IE Sports Radio, or any third or fourth party organization. So I just got to get that out of the way. But with all that said and done, John, the floor is yours. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and basically how you got into volleyball.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm John Speraw. I'm a volleyball coach and have been coaching ever since I got out of school. I played at UCLA, went to UCLA, and my mentor and good friend Al Skates asked me to help out with stats on the bench almost 30 years ago, and that just led to a coaching career. I really enjoyed it, and asked him about how I could continue that as a career, and he was very instrumental in guiding me in that path. And I was really, really lucky to get a head job at a young age at UC Irvine and spent a decade learning how to become a head coach down there, and came back to UCLA when Al retired. So the national team has always been a part of how I've coached and grown as a coach. Started there. Really, my first paid assistant coaching position wasn't at UCLA. I was a volunteer at the time, and Skates got me the job with the 1997 World University Games team. And so I've been doing USA teams. I calculated at one point, it was a couple years ago, but I bet you like 20 of the last 22 summers or something along those lines, I've coached a U.S. team. And so simultaneously had this academic, university, and national team path. And now I've been doing it full-time as a head coach for both programs for 10 years. So really grateful to have that chance. It's two special jobs and worked with some really special players and had some incredible experiences along the way.
That is awesome to hear. And that must be really tough being the UCLA men's volleyball coach and the U.S. men's national coach. But it seems to all work out for you in the end. So tell me, how tough is it being that, if tough at all, especially when you're balancing out family time and then maybe time to yourself and whatnot?
Well, I don't get time for myself. That is for sure. That's out. It is challenging, but I think anytime you're managing organizations, you do it through hiring great staff. I think the number one thing you do as a leader is figure out who your number two is or your number three or what that group of people around you are that support the mission. And for me, I've got incredible staff at both locations. Right now I'm here in Anaheim and preparing for our next tournament, which is Norseca in early September. And I've got Matt Furbringer and Javier Weber and Nate Go and Aaron Brock and Tim Pillow and Morteza Chiari's helping us. And we have an incredible staff. And when you have an incredible staff, you can accomplish great things. All of them bring incredible strengths and complement all of us. And certainly they complement the time demands of running larger organizations. And so the same thing is true at UCLA, incredible staff across the board, and with Nick and Brandon and AJ. And, so it's been just about surrounding the players that I coach with great staff and complimenting me for when I'm gone or the strengths and weaknesses that I bring to the table.
Excellent point. And a great team always starts with a great coaching staff, especially led by an amazing head coach. Now, obviously, was it tough to leave UC Irvine, especially after having won a national championship and having lots of success with the Anteaters?
It was. It was tough to leave the guys. That was really, really hard. Getting into that locker room with a group of men that I cared about a lot. We've been through a lot. We just won together. We built a program over the years that had become very, very successful. And to walk away from them was the hard part. I think the way I framed it in my own mind is I'd been there for 10 years. I felt like I'd given UC Irvine as an institution everything I possibly could have given. Brought it as far as I could have brought it. I mean, we'd won 3 championships over, I think it was a 6-year period, and really, I think accomplished a lot. I mean, I just don't know that there was much more there that I could do. So I think for me at that age and the prospect of finding new challenges was, I think, intellectually interesting to me. I wanted to go do something different. I was young enough to go do that. And so for me, I felt good about that. Like I'd given something to an organization and gotten it to where it needed to be, where it could stand on its own, and it has. And so for me, I thought it was a really good time to walk away. And then to have an opportunity to go to your alma mater, I think is really special for any coach to have that chance. And the timing doesn't work out for very many people, and it worked out for me. And so I felt like it was good in all respects. It was tough though, Teran. I mean, I remember going to the locker room, telling UC Irvine we'd had the banquet the night before, we'd won a championship the week before that, and just crying in the locker room and going to my office and having a couple players come over and just crying. I mean, then I go to my car and I hop in and I drive up to UCLA immediately, because as soon as I announced it to the Irvine team, I needed to announce it to the UCLA team because word gets out so fast. So I'm driving up to 73. I was just crying. I mean, it was just such an incredible part of my life that I experienced there. I mean, I had so much love for the people. I still do. I still keep in touch with a lot of people that are still at UC Irvine. It's a great group of people, and there's so many moments there that we all shared. And then you walk into a room at UCLA, and then they all stand up and applaud. It was just a really interesting day. It was an interesting day. And then to have the opportunity to coach the national team happened about 8 months later. Doug Beal called me and asked me about my interest in coaching both teams at the same time, which hadn't been done before. I'd always wondered if it could be based on the calendar. So we talked about how that may look and came to an agreement. Dan Guerrero, the AD at UCLA at the time, was incredibly supportive. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And then now it's been 10 years, which is crazy. So, yeah, that's how that all happened. And it was hard to walk away from UC Irvine, but it was the right time, and it was the right thing to do for me and ultimately my family, and it's worked out really, really well.
Oh, man, that was just incredible right there. I don't think anyone could have predicted that or anything of that sort. But that is such a great testimony and great story right there. And thank you for sharing that with us, John. Now, you mentioned the U.S. men's national team. What was it like working with the previous coach, Hugh McCutcheon? And did you have any favorite moments with Hugh?
Oh, man, winning the gold medal with Hugh. That was a favorite. Hugh is a really good friend. I wish I had more time to spend with him. We're both working really hard, and he's had such an amazing career going to the women, having such success with the women, and going to Minnesota, and now he's on to new challenges in his life. I had a chance to sit down and have coffee with him, and Mike Wall, who's a former assistant coach of mine with Team USA, and the three of us sat down and had a coffee in Anaheim when we were hosting the VNL weekend. And those moments that I have with Hugh, because we shared such a special time together, and for me it was so formative in my knowledge about how to do this job, which is unique and very different. And I just think when you go through experiences like that, which are intense and challenging, and we get along really well. So for me to see him and catch up when we don't have very many opportunities to do that, we both have young families too, so that was really special for me. I love Hugh. He's such a good guy, and he's so bright, and I really just enjoy every opportunity I have to chat with him and catch up with him. And I know his wife, Wiz, because she's a good Bruin. And so, yeah, it was a phenomenal time. I'm sure if I haven't thought about it in a while, his favorite experiences, there was a lot. I remember the very first trip, well, it wasn't the very first trip, it was the very first World League trip that I did was to France, and we were at a practice, and I hadn't figured out how to really successfully travel across time zones. I've gotten much better at it, of course, over the years. But I remember just like being on the side of the court and like almost falling asleep and just watching him run practice when I could hardly keep my eyes open, and just like, how does he do this? And now I know how he was doing it. But I have such a high amount of respect for Hugh and what he's been able to do with his volleyball career, how he thinks about the game and how he thinks about people. And I just always love crossing paths with you.
Awesome. All right, so let's discuss a little bit of UCLA this past spring. So obviously, we could all say that they won the national championship, but that would basically be boring. Let's dissect this down a little by little. So early on, you were basically just taking everyone down throughout the most part, and then you get to the Big Ten Pac-12 Challenge, which, ironically enough, UCLA and USC are going to be in the Big Ten next season. But when you got to that challenge, you beat Ohio State in 4, but the following day you fell to Penn State, which was hosting the whole thing. So after that loss to Penn State, what did you tell your team following that?
I don't remember exactly what I told them. We got beat. If you watch that video, and I watched it a number of times, there's no question that it wasn't just, there was no excuse for us just having a bad day. That wasn't what had occurred. We'd been beat. They had played very, very well. And so I think it was an opportunity for us to realize that we had some work to do and that we were going to go get that work in. I think it was good for us ultimately. I think it showed that Penn State was one of the best teams in the country, and they proved that all year long. Incidentally, I think Ohio State was too. The night before, I thought we had to play very, very well to beat Ohio State. And so I thought both those matches were very, very valuable for us to kind of understand where we were early in the season, some things we needed to do to improve. We changed some things about the way we were training as a result of that match. and spent a little time trying to figure out, okay, there's a team that we're going to see at the end. What do we need to do to beat them? And certainly it almost happened. I mean, I think they were in the Final Four. At the end of the season, I really felt like Penn State, Hawaii, and UCLA were the three best teams. And the match in the semis with Penn State and Hawaii was an incredible match too. So I think that was a great match. And when we played them in Hawaii in early March, we got a chance to play Penn State again. I mean, it was another really incredible match. I mean, that Penn State was legit this year. I thought they were right in the mix until the very end.
Incredible indeed. Now, the week after was actually I wouldn't say a big-time match, but this was something I kind of personally scheduled on my calendar. 2 matchups with Long Beach State, which the first one you managed to win in 3 sets on your home court. But the second one, you managed to beat the Beach in the Pyramid in front of, I don't know, maybe 10,000 fans in 4 sets, in which Long Beach did everything in its power to try to push that to 5 or steal one of the sets. Tell me, what was that vibe going into Long Beach State week, and how did you all feel mentally knowing that you had to face the team that beat you all last year in the NCAA tournament?
Well, the attitude is always focused because Long Beach has been so good for such a long time, and they do such a great job of preparing their teams. I think we had a good match when we played in Pauley, and I think you go into the Pyramid, and it was packed. I think it was totally sold out, as you mentioned, and it was an incredible environment, super competitive. I think we were just really locked in and focused, and that was Andrew Rowan, now the official starter of our team, but he's a true freshman playing in that arena for the first time. But he came up with some huge serves in that match that won a set for us, and then we had Grant Sloan come off the bench. Unfortunately, towards the latter part of the season, he was injured, but at that moment in time, he was impactful for us and actually, I think, stuffed the final point. So I think that was another just great battle that was formative for us early in the year, and I think it was great for Rowan to be the guy and to go in that environment and to experience it for the first time for himself and get a win and do it really, really well. He impacted that match directly, and so it was a great match. We have a great schedule. We played Penn State a couple times and had a chance to go to Hawaii and play Long Beach and play Irvine and play all these great teams. And so I think throughout the course of the season, we scheduled really well. We scheduled challenging matches against the country's best, and that served us pretty well at the end of the year.
It also served you well when it came to MPSF play, as, long story short, you pretty much mowed down the MPSF. And this is no disrespect to the MPSF. The MPSF is always really good perennially, and there's like a team from top to bottom that can give you fits every single night. But you went undefeated, and you didn't even have a match that went 5. What can you say about your team and how special it was this season, and what trait did it have?
Well, I think you were getting there with the question, and that is just the consistency. I've said this a couple times, and I've said it to the team. I developed over the course of the year such an amount of respect and trust for how our players came to play every single night. I still am amazed that we finished the year 31-2, I think. 31-2. I mean,
yes.
I've never had a season like that. I've been doing this, I think this is my 21st year, and I've never had a season like that. To have a team that just was able, in the academic environment, which is so hard because invariably you have midterms or guys get injured, or it's hard to stay that consistent. And I don't know that we were so crazy physical relative to our opponents. I think if you look back in history of the teams that had 30 wins, you're talking about teams that were significantly more talented in a lot of ways. And I think while we were incredibly talented, we were in the mix with everybody. I don't think I looked at the major opponents that we had and thought to myself, gosh, we're just more talented or have some really players that are far beyond in experience or skill level than anybody else. But the collective of the Bruins this year, their professionalism, their maturity to come in every single match and be ready to go, for guys off the bench to come and contribute when we needed it, because we weren't perfectly healthy all season long. In some spots, we didn't have great depth, and I just, for us to get to the end of that run and to look back and to see that we just done it day after day after day, match after match, come to play, made important plays when it mattered. I just think that doesn't happen very often. And so I'm really, really proud of this team. This team did an amazing job in a very unique way. And so I think it's a testament to their focus and professionalism.
That is great to hear, John. And honestly, it could not have been said any better. And I'll also just add this. What gave Andrew Rowan that sparkle in your eyes when you basically had him as the starting setter?
He's got a confidence and a belief in his ability to impact the match that exceeds his years of experience. He is, I think he just has a sense of fun in the way he plays, and I think he's able to go into those moments, and I think he's got the ability to be loose and to play free. And that's another thing that is just you don't see very often. And I think he loves those moments. I know that's cliche, but I think he showed that even in the Long Beach State match when he really was the starter for the first time and served some aces to win sets. And I think he really does love those moments. And for somebody to come in his position, nobody has won as a true freshman a national championship since 1992. That's a long time. So I think he's a special player, and I'm excited about what he can do, because I think year one is him just trying to get his bearings and play in some gyms he's never been in before, and understand what he needs to do for his own development. And I think he's got a lot of growth ahead of him. I think he's got a long, long runway. He's just learning. He's just growing. He's, in terms of technical and tactical and strength and leadership, I mean, he's got a lot of room to run in terms of his ability to continue to grow and develop.
And in closing the book on UCLA and its national championship, basically, obviously you had a few years where you came up a little bit short. How did it feel to finally cross the finish line with this team at your alma mater?
It felt really good. You're right. We'd been close on a number of occasions. Some of it in our control, some of it not. I think for me as a Bruin and wanting to win it for the institution and the alumni who've been so supportive, they've been awesome. They've just been awesome. I think they understood that our process was good, that we were doing the right things the right way. I never heard any criticism at all. People ask me about that. People ask me about following skates or coming to a place like UCLA, and it wasn't what I've heard from the stories of trying to follow Wooden, where it was just challenging for the following coaches to really live up to the standard that he had set, and then nobody could have set a better standard than Al skates. And so for me to come in there, I could have felt the same way. It worked out really, really well that I came into an environment where I think I had my own sense of self about how I coached, which I think was helpful. I'd had a decade away, and I came in with an idea of how I wanted to run and my own style and with my own personality, and everybody was embraced that from the alumni. And when we got close and didn't quite get it and had some tough years, so just nothing but support. So really happy that we could get this for everybody, because I think everybody felt it. And I think it didn't matter if you played for UCLA in the 60s or you graduated a couple years ago. I think it was a joyous moment for all Bruins, and I think for me, a moment of deep satisfaction at being able to give back to a school that's given me so much.
Well, that's amazing to hear, and congratulations once again to the 2023 UCLA men's volleyball team on being national champions. All right, now let's jump on into some VNL action with the U.S. men's national team. So, looking at this year's team, I want to know, what did you like about coaching this year's team, and in case we have any new listeners, what can you say about this year's men's national team as opposed to the past men's national teams?
Well, Teran, I love coaching this team. It's a tremendous amount of pride to coach the best players in the United States of America and to step out on the volleyball court and represent your country. It's something that it's hard to describe when you step out there and hear the national anthem, or even hear the national anthems of opponents and understand just how special it is. There's only one team that gets to do that, and there's only 14 guys that get to travel, and there's only one staff, and there's only one head coach, and it's something that gets me every time. The description of this team doesn't change much from year to year because the players don't change much from year to year. So your question about what do you say about last year versus this year, they're pretty similar. I think there's a lot of love for players that I've had the good fortune of coaching for a long time. I've been coaching Maddie Anderson since, I think it goes back to even like 2011 when I really started coaching him. Because I was with the team in 2008 and 2009 and 10. I was with the women a little on a trip in 2009. 2010, I don't think I was one of those summers I didn't do anything for USAV. So I came back in. Now Maddie had arrived. So it's 2011. So I've been coaching Maddie a long time. And I mean, I know his journey as a volleyball player and as a person. And so when you share experiences like that are with Maddie and lots of others on this team. I mean, I've been coaching this group for 10 years. There's a lot of long-term relationships that are there. And in terms of them as a volleyball program, I mean, these guys are pros. They have incredible strengths. They've been playing at elite levels all over the world for a long time now. This is a different team from a volleyball perspective than it was 10 years ago when we were bringing in a lot of young players. When Eric Shoji was coming in and Micah Christensen was just a sophomore at SC when we gave him his first opportunity at North Seca on the back end of that first summer 10 years ago. And on and on. Aaron Russell, Thomas Jeske, Taylor Sander. You know, these guys were all young players coming into the program. And now you have a group of veterans. And so you coach them a little differently. You try to manage practices differently. There's probably a continuous adaptation for how you train based on their needs as a player and the specific needs as a team, as systems and other opponents continue to change. So I think there's this ongoing intellectual process where you're trying to just develop and grow and change and not get too static. And that's always a risk when you have a veteran team. But I think this is that's my description of this group, is that they constantly are trying to find ways to improve. They're constantly engaged in how they can become better volleyball players. An incredibly professional group of guys. They just had a great practice today and got in the weight room and were hammering it. And these guys are all in. I think you have to be all in if you're playing on the national team. It's a challenge to be away from your family and friends and live overseas for 8 months a year, and then to come home and immediately get on a flight and go somewhere for VNL. You have to be all in. You have to love it. This is what you want to do, and this is a group of guys that are 100% all in, and that's how I describe them from a volleyball perspective.
That is basically the perfect description right there, especially when you're representing your country. So, looking at the VNL in terms of the recap, you all pretty much did extremely well. Event 1 or week 1, you all did take a little bit of a tumble to Brazil, but as I've mentioned in past episodes, Brazil is always tough when it comes to the U.S. in terms of any sort of volleyball. And then in Event 2 in Rotterdam, Netherlands, you all pretty much just breezed through it with only dropping one set to Serbia. So how were you all able to keep your spirits high after that loss to Brazil?
I don't think in VNL that a loss here or there necessarily breaks your spirit. if you have a group that is mature like ours and has been through a lot of battles together, I think you also have to have an understanding that playing 4 matches in 5 days necessitates different lineups, and you're going to make some changes, and everybody on the team, all the way down, understands that, and everybody comes every week with the mindset that we're all in this together, and we're all going to contribute. And so we lost to Brazil, but I don't think that was some discouraging moment. Especially in international volleyball. I mean, the teams are so good. They're all so close. You're going to go to the Olympic Games with probably 10 or maybe this year, the way the qualification process works, maybe 10 or 11 of the teams could medal. If you look at even the VNL finals where you play France in the quarters and then you play Italy, so the defending gold medalist in the quarters and the defending world champ in the semis, and then you're playing Poland, who's the number 1 ranked team in the world. I mean, that's the quarter semis finals, and that's every single tournament if you can get into the quarters. So men's volleyball it's hard. And so I think if you have a match where it doesn't quite go your way, like the final didn't, and you're in this to win it. I think this team is capable of winning golds and championships. And when you lose, it's disappointing, but I don't think anybody around here gets discouraged. I think we know we can continue to get better. This team's great about that. I think America is known for our ability to continue to train. I think we're known for that. And so we're going to come back and learn a little bit about why we lost, and then we're going to go in the gym. We're going to get better.
And yes, it was indeed a great run. And the fact that you all had such a gauntlet in the final round, or the knockout round as I call it. Some people call it the championships. I call it the knockout round. Everyone calls it the final round, but I digress. So yeah, as you mentioned it, you all played France, the reigning VNL champion, in the quarterfinals, and then you played Italy, which, as you said, they're the gold medalists from the Olympics, and then you had to play Poland, the host team. What was the environment like in that championship match facing the host team, Poland?
It was pretty intense. It was in Gdansk, Poland, and they have an arena there that reminds me a little bit, not totally architecturally, but in terms of size, just the Staples Center. It's got a lower bowl and some luxury boxes around the middle, and then an upper bowl, and it's about the same size. And so it was packed. Anytime you play in Poland, it's a special experience. They love volleyball there. It's huge. Any arena you go into is sold out, and you go to Poland a lot. I probably lost track of the number of times I've been there and the number of cities that we've played in. And each time you go there, it's an amazing experience. And this was another one. The energy was high, and I thought we were ready to go, and they had a great match, and we weren't as good as we were the night before versus Italy. And so we're still talking about that. What can we learn from that, and how do we take some lessons from that into this next training block so we can be a little bit better at Norseca and then ultimately at the Olympic qualifiers this summer. But to your question, playing in Poland is a real special experience. If I had to tell your fans, is there a country to go to where you would see a real special volleyball experience, Poland might be at or near the top for sure. But it's quite a fun place to go play volleyball, and it's hard because their fans are supporting their team, but they're great volleyball fans. I think they're respectful and they're enthusiastic. They always treat us great. I've never felt anything but love of the sport from the Polish volleyball fans. It's a great place to go compete.
Awesome. So before the knockout round or final round, you actually had the honor of playing in Anaheim, California. So tell me, when you all got the news that the VNL was coming to California, albeit Anaheim, what was your reaction? What were some of the players' reactions?
I was personally thrilled. We haven't had a home Southern California match in 7 years. VNL is a great tournament, but it is a grind. It is. The previous summer, we were on the road out of the country 72 days over a 95-day period. and I can't even remember. We went Brazil, home for a couple days, to Bulgaria, to Japan, home for a couple days, and then to Bologna, and then we were only home for another couple weeks before we went to Poland for 3.5 weeks for World Champs. And so to have a home weekend for VNL and not get on a plane, even more so to have it in Southern California where you're not really not getting on a plane and you're not having any jet lag, and your family and friends can be there, which is honestly it's a different experience because then you're trying to manage families and time and tickets and distractions. In general, a huge positive. And so for us, it was a great weekend. It was exciting to be home. The crowds were awesome. I thought it was really, really fun to play in front of American fans, and it was great volleyball. France, Argentina, Cuba, Bulgaria. Each match was great. I want to thank all the American volleyball fans and the Southern California fans that came out. Made a huge difference. And I think the more that our fans come out and support and create an environment like that and buy tickets, then it's more likely that we'll be able to come back. And that's what we want to do. We want to make this an annual event. I think it's great for our team, and I think it's great for American volleyball, and I think it's great for the young kids you see in the stands.
And that's pretty much what the sport of volleyball is about. We basically have to continue to grow the game to see more promotion, more big-time things. And who knows, maybe this could possibly lead to a national televisation, if that really is a word. But but either way, it was awesome to have the VNL in Anaheim. I actually did get to attend one of the matches, the one against Bulgaria, courtesy of former U.S. men's national player Russell Holmes. And that kind of leads me to this question. Did you get to know Russell Holmes personally, and did you have any favorite memories with Russell Holmes?
I 100% know Russ. We went to an Olympics together. There's a picture of, there's a picture of Russ and I and Maddie Anderson and Clay Stanley and Reed Pretty and Rich Lamborn in a timeout in London, where I guess I'm talking some defensive tactics. It's on my wall that somebody made for me. So I still keep in touch with Russ. I know he's still engaged in the sport. He's a great guy. So I've talked to Russ on a number of occasions recently. So I didn't know you guys knew one another. So you know a good guy in the volleyball world.
So how I know Russell Holmes is basically he actually is the head coach, the owner, the GM, and sometimes a player for the Utah Stingers of the NVA. And basically I said, are you going to be heading to the Bulgaria-USA match? And he basically said, I won't. But I jokingly asked him, can you hook me up with a ticket? And he's like, I don't think I can because I have to pay for him, but we'll see. And then he eventually came around and he's like, yeah, I can hook you up with one. And I'm like, you're the best, Russ. So
he may have paid for it, Teran. So there weren't very many free tickets to that. I mean, I know my family paid for it. So it was a great event though, and I saw you there. So thanks for coming out.
No problem. That entire weekend between July 7th all the way through July 9th was packed with volleyball. Not just with the VNL, but with the NVA. And then the AVP had the Hermosa Beach Open. So there was just volleyball here, there, and everywhere. So what's it like having all those volleyball events in Southern California helping grow the game of volleyball in every aspect?
I think it's great. Listen, there's pockets of the country where the sport is really strong, and I think you need to grow the game into the pockets where it doesn't exist, but you also need to remember your strengths and stay true to your strengths. And certainly Southern California's volleyball culture has been something that's been a foundational strength of our sport for as long as I've been around it, and to bring the game here so that all those fans and alumni and players, looking up in the stands and just seeing so many familiar faces in the volleyball world when it was in Anaheim. Everybody came out. It was awesome. I know we recognized some players and alumni and a lot of longtime friends and colleagues came up and said hello, and So I think it's wonderful when we can bring volleyball to Southern California. All the volleyball fans that are here, it makes for a great event. And, of course, and then we go to Norseca, which is in West Virginia, which isn't a hotbed of volleyball. But that's great, too. So, I mean, doing both, I think, is important as we continue to grow our sport.
Yes, absolutely. And it was awesome to see you, like I said. And that Bulgaria matchup was pretty good, especially in that first set. I did actually arrive a little late just because I was coming from the NVA after helping clean up the gym. Then I had to go home, drop off my stuff, and then go back to the Anaheim Convention Center to basically go see your match. So it was basically a whirlwind on July 9th, but it was a definitely well-earned whirlwind, or it was worth a whirlwind. So anyway, regarding the VNL and closing the book on that, what were some lessons you all can take away as you head to Norseca in West Virginia?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of specific volleyball-related items on our list. There are details because these players have been playing for a long time. There's a lot of really good things they did. But what do the numbers show about an individual's need for improvement on a particular route or effectiveness of particular systems? How do we need to execute a little bit better? Can you get 1% better on your serve? Can you get a couple percent better on your passing? How do we attack that in the training environment? It's a lot of staff meetings talking about those things and then putting together a plan for how that works the next day. I mean, that's what we did today. And when we came back, Nate Go is our statistician and technical director, and he does an amazing job of doing all the data analytics and providing the coaching staff an overview of exactly what those areas need to be. It's not an incredibly long list because you only have about 3-4 weeks, and what can you accomplish? So it's a conversation about what are the big things you need to do? What are the most impactful things you need to do? What can you accomplish in a period of time like this? The national team it's very, I keep using the word unique. I mean, it really is. It's just a unique environment. It's not professional volleyball because you don't get to work with a team for 8 months and play a once or twice a week and in this consistent cadence. And there's more depth here. How do you integrate that? Just in general, not always, but how do you integrate that? And it's very intense. I mean, think about VNL. We came back. I was just had Eric Shojian here, and we were talking about practice today. And the challenges of VNL, he had 3 practices total before we hopped on a plane and went to Ottawa. So what is practice planning? What's that list you need to work on before you have your first VNL match? It's literally just getting everybody connected. And then you're home only for a couple days, and then you're probably beat up because you played 4 matches in 5 days. So what do you accomplish with the 2 or 3 days that you might have before you play again? It's limited. And then you're learning through this process about what this team needs to do this summer, today. And so you come home and you have this chance to regroup, but then you only got 3 weeks, and then you're off bouncing around, and then you're not really making significant changes in the way that you play the game. So this period of time is highly focused on what are the big priorities for us and how do we make a change in a short period of time. And that is definitely a challenge.
Awesome. And to fully close the book on the U.S. national team, what could we all expect from the U.S. national team as we all saw the Olympics and how you just fell short of the knockout round or the top 8? But what could we expect from this year's team and how hungry they could be to make in the top 8 and going for the pursuit of the gold medal?
Yeah, this time we don't need to be. So we have Norseca coming up in early September in West Virginia. We leave here September 2nd. I believe the tournament starts September 5th, but your listeners would need to confirm that. I live day to day. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. I probably should know that. And then we have that tournament that week. We come home. We give everybody. We fly home on September 11th, 12th, and 13th. We're off. And then we train 14th, 15th, 16th, off 17th. train 18th, 19th, and then depart for Tokyo. So we have 5 days to train when we get home. And then you go to the Olympic qualifier, and then you're playing a round robin, 7 matches in 9 days, and you have to finish in the top 2. But there's no semis and finals. It's literally just a round robin, so it's a tie break based on point and set ratio. So it's not about finishing in the medal rounds of the final. We need to finish top 2, Teran, once we get to Tokyo, and that'll be in early October.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you got to do there? And we're going to have to probably use our depth. I think 7 matches in 9 days is going to probably necessitate that at some point in the tournament. So everybody's got to be ready to go and contribute. I think it's going to be about understanding what we do really, really well and doing that to the best of our ability. It's about learning a little bit about the improvements that we need to make based on what we've seen from VNL. And then we got to go out and serve and pass. And if we can serve and pass and let Micah Christensen do what he does best, he's a real difference maker for us. He makes everybody else better. And so if we can get the ball in his hands in good positions, I think our team will be in a good spot.
Excellent. And we look forward to seeing what you all could do in Osaka, then going down to Tokyo and whatnot. So we're excited to see what you can bring to the table and what your team can bring to the table. So a few little other questions that I had in mind. I know this is probably going to be the longest question, or for you, the longest answer, but who have been some of your most favorite and more memorable UCLA players or UC Irvine players that you've coached?
Wow, that is a hard one there, Teran, because there's just so many guys with so many great personalities and funny moments. It's interesting. You think about the wins, you think about some of the harder losses, and then you just think about all the random stuff that happened off the volleyball court. the times that were just hysterical, or the personalities of the players that were just, you recognized as being unbelievably special people, and there's a lot of them. And here's some examples. It's not always the guys that are the first-team All-Americans or the guys that were the most talented. You think about the Irvine years, and I think a lot about Paul Spittle, who was the team captain in one of my early years. He wasn't a future national team guy, but he was an incredible leader, incredible person, incredible work ethic, and I think was instrumental in really the attitude that team had going through the early years of Irvine. And then you think about Brian Thornton, who really was his personality is so great. He's got such a great sense of humor. He's really, really smart. I mean, just crazy smart, and has this intuition that's unbelievably good. And so he was so instrumental in really developing the big system that I think really elevated that program early on, because nobody else was running it to the level that Brian could run it. And for me, I think was formative in terms of how I saw the game, because it forced me to think about how you implemented a system that hadn't been done by anybody in the United States. And I think it made me more of an offensive coach, made me more of a systems coach, and those philosophies and the way of seeing the game haven't changed since that period of time. And I think that was really a collaborative effort between me and Brian. And then if you think, even as you're getting to the latter part, the 2009 team that won a championship didn't have a singular one leader guy. You had this group of players who'd been there for a long period of time. There was 5, 6, 7 guys that you could have said had a part in the leadership dynamic of that team. But that year, we weren't the best team, but we had the best plan. And they executed it in an incredibly high level at the very end. And you had some real storylines at the end, where guys who had just been grinding for so long and never really gotten a break. I mean, if you think a guy like John Steller, who had such bad knees and such a good arm and had knee surgeries, but he just stayed with it over and over and over. And then for him to rip an ace in the 5th set, it's just like, gosh, it's a feel-good story. But that whole group, Taylor Wilson, Nick Spittle, Ryan Ammerman, Jordan DeFault, Kevin Carroll. I mean, you just go down the list of the guys that impacted that team dynamic. I think 2012 was an unbelievably talented team and a lot of fun guys. I mean, we were rolling at that point. I had a chance to coach Kevin Tilley, who I now get to see quite a bit on the international stage. Got to know the Tilley family, which is, I mean, a real special relationship, I think, for me. I had a chance, even after we lost, or after we beat France, he'd just lost. We're in the hallway in Gdansk, Poland, and we stayed there chatting for like 20 minutes. You know, it's fun to have these type of relationships that have lasted over 10 years, in some cases probably close to 20 years now, if you're talking about guys like Spittle and Thornton. If you come to UCLA, then you start thinking about a whole new group of guys and role players. I think one of the great role players that I coached, you don't know his name, but his name is Spencer Sachs. And he's a guy that wasn't the most talented guy on the team. But when I looked over, I remember looking over one time, and it was warming up before a volleyball match. And I looked over, and Spencer wasn't getting any swings. But what he was doing is he was running around shagging balls and getting it to the guys who were going to play, because he knew he wasn't going to play. He was there to serve his teammates. And so I just look at that and go, that's so selfless, and it's so generous. It's what you want from your team. And so it's not the guys that are always the ones that are getting 20 kills a night. It's not always just about volleyball. I mean, it's been fun for me to reconnect with Kofi in the last year, just because he's now got his music career going. I remember walking to the back of the bus one time, and Kofi was creating beats. Taran, I don't know what creating beats are, but he's there, he's on his computer, he's got his headphones on. I said, what are you doing? I sit down and he shows me what he's doing, and he tells me, which I didn't even know, that he'd taken music theory for 9 years. Like, the guy loved music, and now he's making music, and he signed his second record deal with Red Bull Records, and he's off, you know? I love those stories. So I think about the guys that have stories themselves, and the guys that contributed in unique ways that weren't always the guys that had the best arms. I think a lot about this year's team. This year's team was collaborative. They were tough. They were. It wasn't that they didn't have differences, but they did, and they put them aside, and they were focused on the mission. I mean, there's not a team that you have where sometimes people drive you nuts. I'm sure this year's no different. But for them to work together on the volleyball court and be committed the way that they were, I think it's really special. And so, I think this year's team that's the thing about teams. You have those opportunities to win. There's some bonding that goes on there. And I think this team won, and they're a special group of guys because they were able to put it over the top. There's some guys that came close. I have an opportunity to coach Micah Maha now. He came close in 2018. We almost did something really special that year and didn't. And sometimes those things still hurt, you know. But you have special experiences on and off the volleyball court with special people, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of those in my life.
Amazing list. And I know who you're talking about. And I know what making beats are. It's basically you're just making music and making like hip hop and whatnot, and for that sort of thing. And yeah, I do remember Kofi and how he made such a tremendous impact for UCLA men's volleyball. So that's actually a perfect segue to go into this year's upcoming team for 2024. Now that you're the defending champions and you've got a good portion of your team returning, what can you expect for this year, and what will it take to basically repeat as champions?
I think it's going to take, to the latter part of your question, what it's going to take is for us to come to the quick recognition that we're not champions anymore. You know, it's going to be about humility. It's going to be about a reflection, and we'll do this, but a reflection upon that journey and what it took. Sometimes you get to the end and you win and you forget. You forget about some of the challenges that were along the way. You can beat a team 3-0, but sometimes 6 weeks go by and you play them again and they beat you, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, we beat them 3-0. We thought we beat them 3-0, but then you look at the scores and every one was a deuce set, and maybe in one of those sets they played basically better, but you ripped off 3 aces at the end and thought you were, big time or whatever. You have to understand that this game is the margins are thin no matter what, and a serve off the tape that drops for an ace can be the difference. And you have to respect that. And you have to respect that there's a lot of other teams that didn't win. And what did they do? While you were probably celebrating on that Monday, they were in the weight room because they were upset and you weren't. And so you have to coach teams that have been champions different than the way the teams that aren't. And I know those differences, and we're going to go in and we're going to talk about those things. And if we can execute on humility, then I think we have a shot.
And to quote one of my past guests, Tom Pestalozzi, you can't get too high on the wins, but you can't get too low on the losses. So,
well, Teran, to interrupt you, do you know the impact that Pesto had on my life?
Well, it's probably a positive one because he got the nickname Positive Pesto.
Teran, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It's okay, so you don't have to guess while everybody's waiting. But Pesto introduced me to my wife because my wife played for Pesto at IVC on his very first team at IVC. And so the Pesto and the whole family is really close to us, and so my wife Michelle and I owe a lot to Pesto putting us together, and so that's you quoted an incredible man for your interview here. You didn't know that was going to resonate like it did with me, Teran.
I think it might. He just used that as a quote for. I think someone else had the quote, but Pesto did one time say it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you that and I was just thinking a little bit back to the previous question, and I think there are so many special relationships that happen within this sport. There's the players, there's the coaches, there's the volleyball community. I think about my continued relationships with all the other former players who've become coaches, because now I have a lot of dialogue with those guys. And so it's really fun for me, even if it's a guy like Brad Keller at SC, like he's got to be a Trojan, which is just, I feel really bad for him that he's got to be a Trojan, Teran. I mean, that's a terrible thing to shoulder, but I'm here for him, and I think Trent Kirsten just got the job at Loyola Marymount, and Thornton is now at Oklahoma because he was at LMU, and Kevin Carroll's at Cincinnati, and Ryan Ammerman's now at Maryland, and I have a lot of Spencer McLaughlin just came back from Indiana to work with Brad. I just think it's super fun. Rob Nielsen and I got a chance to work together on the national team for 4 years, and he's at Utah State. So and all these guys are doing great. It is really, really fun for me to just continue to be a part of this volleyball community. Former players that are doing great things off the volleyball court, former players and staff that are doing great things within the sport, people like Pesto that can have such an impact on my life. I mean, I think we should all be grateful for the community of volleyball because there's a lot of great people in it.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head. We have to be grateful for the volleyball community and everyone who's influenced the sport of volleyball. One last question, and then I'll let you go for the most part. Who have been some of your favorite coaches you faced off against in terms of volleyball?
I like Pav because he's the nicest guy in volleyball. So anytime I think about the history I've had with Mark Pavlik and all the great teams that he had, I mean, he the nice part, again, volleyball community, he had come out to do a camp, and he was with his son, Jack. And so he and Jack came over to the house just last week, and you get to sit down in the backyard, have some appetizers, and tell some stories, and maybe not even talk about volleyball all that much. So Jeff Nygaard at SC is one of my good friends. We were really close all the way through school. We came home to Thanksgiving with me and my family for years and years and years. So it's always good to see Jeff. I mean, I see Jeff before a match, and I just love that I have a moment to catch up with him, because he's got a young family, a little bit older than mine. I got a young family and a couple jobs, and so I don't have a lot of time to hang out with Nikes, but I like going and having a moment to catch up with him before a match. Who else? I don't know. There's so many good guys there. I mean, I like them all, man. There's really nobody that I don't. People probably think I don't like some guys or whatever. I know there's the rivalries. People try to talk up or whatever. There's literally nobody that I just go into a match and I don't want to have a conversation with. So, yeah, there's some great coaches out there, though. I mean, that's the thing, is that who are the coaches I like to go up against? I like to go up against the coaches that have the best teams. You know, they're the ones that are going to challenge you. They're the ones that are going to give you something to do that night. You know, you're going to have to really work for it. And so there's a lot of those guys out there that have great teams.
Excellent. And I'm glad you have that relationship with everybody. And what I look forward to every men's volleyball season is obviously Long Beach State versus UCLA, with you versus Alan Knipe and whatnot, and your respective teams. Just because I know you two coach, well, Alan used to coach the U.S. team, and then you currently coach the U.S. team. So one more, and something I hope that can happen is, hopefully, like the Big Ten, there will be like an MPSF men's volleyball media day, but I don't think I should dream that much. Should I?
I don't think so. Let's not go crazy, Teran. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I don't know, maybe it's something you could do on Zoom, but yeah, maybe someday. I don't know. That's never been brought up, but I'll tell you what, Teran, I will bring it up.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I could dream. But, yeah, I mean, if the Big Ten could do it, then maybe the MPSF, the Big West, can maybe do it. So, or maybe we could have like a round table of you, Alan Knipe, maybe Mark Pavlik, and then myself in a like round table discussion, and then have it like in a video or whatnot. I don't know. It's basically what 6 rotations does, but this time to try to grow the sport of men's volleyball, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, I think you named some people who could impact that. I think anytime you want to sit around and talk about how to grow the game of men's volleyball, I'd be happy to do it. Obviously, you know about my work with the First Point Volleyball Foundation and how much I've focused and given to the game, because it's given me so much. I really want to try to find ways to give back and share the opportunity that I had with as many others as I can. And so, yeah, I think anytime we want to talk about the growth of the game, I'm in.
Excellent. And on that note, that is pretty much that for this interview. Coach, thank you very much for being on today's show, the Season 4 finale of Set Point. It really is appreciative that you took time out of your day to come on. I know I took an hour of your time, but it really means a lot. Tell everyone where we could all find you on social media.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it hardly at all, but I have gotten active on Instagram, so you can follow me on Coach Speraw on Instagram. I just launched my website at johnsperaw.com because I'm going to get into the camp business a little bit, and maybe some other things too. So those are the 2 best places to catch me, is Instagram and my website for now.
Excellent. And John, if you could stay on the line so I can give you a proper goodbye, that would be awesome. But we're going to take ourselves a quick commercial break, as that was John Speraw, the U.S. men's national volleyball head coach and the head coach of the 2023 men's volleyball national champions, UCLA. But that was my guest, John Speraw. And when we return, I will be discussing a little bit of AVP, the U.S. women's girls 19 team winning the U19 championship, and I'll discuss a little of the Ann Kang Tournament and a former Set Point guest who basically did well in that tournament. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. but let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome to AZ Sports Daily. I'm your host, Kieran Daly, bringing the heat to Arizona sports. There's no discrimination here. We're going to talk about every sports team, professional and college. The show is all about you, the listener. I'm here to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here? It's going to be fun, high energy. You may not agree with what I say. That's okay. Let me hear you. Let's talk about it. Join me every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on AZ Sports Daily. That's AZ Sports, Daily, and at IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
With segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Chi-Town Weekly will be coming up in about 30 or so minutes, 37 minutes as of this recording. But right now we have to close out season 4 of Set Point as we are in segment number 2. First and foremost, thank you once again to John Speraw for being a guest here on Set Point. Obviously, it is tough with his schedule, as once again, he is not as free as most people think he is, and with my schedule, but we agreed on a time and a day, and then boom, we got the interview knocked out. So let's get on into that second half of the show, but first and foremost, Set Point would not have had this interview without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. And also follow us on Facebook. All you just have to do is type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar, like us, and then boom, that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com. And when you go there, you'll see all the sports news, IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each of our podcasts, including this one, our community forum, and our merchandise shop, which will hopefully be updated with more clothes for the correct season. For the past 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, such as John Speraw, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you, everyone, for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. We'd also like to give a shout-out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket beef jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Also, I just managed to get myself a hand or two on a bag of that beautiful, delicious Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. And basically all you need to do is go onto their website, www.planetjerky.net, place your order, and basically that's how you're able to get your jerky from Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. And also follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky and DM them saying that you bought your jerky from hearing this ad. Once again, huge shout to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And with all that said and done, let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point. So we didn't have too much volleyball happening, but we did have a little bit of the U.S. U19 girls volleyball team that managed to do a lot of special things. So This was actually a 2-day event where they actually played basically, I wouldn't say round robin, but pool play. Pool play lasted from August 1st through August 7th. Their first match, they defeated Korea in 5 sets. Second match, the day after, they defeated Japan in straight sets in 3. Then the day after Japan, they faced Mexico. They won that one in 3 sets. They had the day off on August 4th, but on August 5th, they defeated Poland in 4 sets. Then they defeated Serbia in a grueling 5-set match the day after they played Poland. And that was pretty much that. And I basically said that it was August 1st through 7th, but it was actually August 1st through 6th, though my apologies on that. So, for the round of 16, the U.S. was obviously the top seed, and they had the honor of facing the Dominican Republic, where they swept that match. And then they faced Brazil in the quarterfinals, and boy howdy, like I mentioned on past shows, Brazil is basically the U.S.'s main rival, or one of the main rivals. It's never really easy to face Brazil. And when it comes to USA versus Brazil in any sort of volleyball, all bets are off. That was the case in this match, as the U.S. needed quite the comeback as they defeated Brazil in 5 sets to advance to the semifinals, where they defeated Italy in 4 sets to advance to the finals, which was on August 11th, where they took on Turkey. And boy howdy, it was a thriller. So Turkey actually took the first 2 sets, 25-20 and 25-23, but then the U.S. chipped away at the deficit. They managed to win the 3rd set, 25-22. Then the 4th set, they won in stronger fashion, 25-16. And then the 5th set, they managed to win that 15-10 as they wound up winning the entire U19 World Championship, which was huge for the U.S. as they went undefeated, as that was big time right there, as these were the players on the U.S. girls U19 roster. Jalen August, Charlie Furbringer, the daughter of Matt Furbringer and Joy Mackenzie Furbringer, Aiden Ames, Favor Anyawu, Campbell Flynn, Ava Faldudo, Becca Kelly, Olivia Mach, Emerson Selman, Abigail Mullen, Terea Sigler, and Abby Vanderwall. The head coach of that team was actually Jamie Morrison, who is the current head coach of Texas A&M. So, good job to Jamie Morrison, as the U.S. U19 girls team is your 2023 U19 champions. And the assistant coach for the U.S. U19 team was Michelle Chapman-Smith, Maggie Eppright, and performance coach Kyle Thompson. And then Chris Cornell was ATC, and then the team leader was John Wong. The alternates, I guess I should make note of them: Lizzie Andrew, Carly Gilk, Casey Demaria, Noemi Glover, Skylar Pierce, Carly Spears, and Izzy Stark. So that's basically your U.S. U19 team and its reserves and coaching staff, and that was who wound up winning the U19 championship. So, also that weekend of the U19 championship, of the at least quarterfinals and semifinals and final, there was the Ann Kang Tournament. It's the first high school girls volleyball tournament. Now, I will also make note that I'm not going to go through all the matches just because I don't want to sound like Mother Goose. But in the semifinals, you basically had to fish top 2 in your pool. This was a pool, 2 pools of 8 teams. And you had to finish top 2 to advance to the semifinals. And there was no third place match. So the top 2 teams in Pool A were Miracosta and Los Alamitos. Now, Los Alamitos is a familiar name because that was the former name of, or that was the name of our former guest, Dave Huber, who I'm very impressed by Los Alamitos and Dave Huber. The fact that Los Al got all the way to the semifinals is very good. Because that's not an easy tournament to do really well in, because there are a lot of stacked teams. Like, do you know how many good teams there are? You've got, this year they had Miracosta, Punahu. If I'm mispronouncing that name, I apologize. Moana Lua, which is a solid team. Lovejoy is fairly solid. Oaks Christian isn't too bad. Then that's just Pool A. Pool B, there was Cornerstone Christian, who actually finished number 2 in the nation last year behind Cathedral Catholic. Yes, that Cathedral Catholic that wound up going undefeated and only dropped 1 set. You also had Iolani, who was the host team. You had Sierra Canyon, which won the CIF Southern Section Division I Championship. We also had Huntington Beach, which was coached by another former Set Point guest, Craig Pizzanti. You also had Boswell, which is fairly good. And I also want to give my heartfelt condolences to everyone affected by the Maui fires. I hope you are all safe. And I know a majority of my Set Point followers are basically from the Hawaii area. I don't know if you're from Maui, but if you are from Maui, I do want to send my condolences to you and hope that you are safe. But that was pretty much that in terms of the top tier teams. So back to the semifinals. I will just say this in terms of the Ann Kang Tournament. There were actually some tiebreakers. Like, in terms of Pool A, Miracosta, Punahou, and Los Alamitos all tied for first in Pool A. Fortunately for Miracosta and Los Alamitos, they actually had the tiebreaker over Punahou, as Los Alamitos actually had the tiebreaker over them in terms of set percentage in their game record, and Miracosta basically was the same thing. Miracosta beat Los Alamitos, which beat Punahou, which beat Miracosta. So all in all, for Miracosta, they were the top seed as they faced the second place team in Pool B, while Los Alamitos faced the first place team in Pool B. Now, Pool B was also kind of a crazy one, except Cornerstone Christian basically ate everybody for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They did not drop a match in pool play. They went 7-0. They were the first place team from Pool B. Then second place was kind of a crazy one. Iolani, Sierra Canyon, and Huntington Beach all tied for second place with a 5-2 record. However, Sierra Canyon managed to have a better game record or set record by one set over Huntington Beach. If Huntington Beach had taken one more set from either Iolani or Cornerstone Christian, which they actually lost both of those in 2 sets. The format was 2 out of 3, by the way. Huntington Beach might have actually advanced to the semifinals and not Sierra Canyon. But unfortunately, Huntington Beach just fell short, and it's tough, but it's still early in the season for a lot of these teams, if not all these teams. So, semifinal time, as I'm going to speed through the semifinals. Cornerstone Christian swept Los Alamitos. The Griffins actually had a chance to force a third set, but they were up 23-21, and Cornerstone Christian, being the talented team that they are, they scored the last 4 points, and it was so heartbreaking. Part of me really wanted to see that go 3 sets, just because, obviously, my former Set Point guest and a good friend of mine, Dave Huber, was coaching the Griffins. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But it's still a very good showing for Los Alamitos. Again, Ann Kang Tournament is one of the toughest tournaments to place top 4 in, or top 3 in. So to get to the semifinals is a huge accomplishment. For the other semifinal, it was a rematch of last year's CIF Southern Section final between Miracosta and Sierra Canyon. And Miracosta and Sierra Canyon both having different teams. Despite this, Miracosta managed to beat Sierra Canyon in 2 sets, and you got to remember that they did not have Charlie Furbringer. I forgot to mention that Charlie Furbringer is on Miracosta. She is in her senior year. She committed to Wisconsin, and she was not available because, obviously, she was with the US U19 team. So, despite this, Miracosta managed to sweep Sierra Canyon, and they managed to face Cornerstone Christian in the final. So, in the final, Cornerstone Christian took the first set 25-16, but then Miracosta took the second set 25-19. So I was very baffled because after that first set, I was very convinced that Cornerstone Christian was kind of like the Georgia or Alabama of this tournament. But Miracosta really brought them back down to earth. And then in the third set, it was tight early on, but Miracosta really showed why they can be a contender this year. And they did so without Charlie Furbringer, as they took the third set 15-11, winning the Ann Kang Tournament for the second straight year and for the 8th time overall, which is very impressive, as they denied Cornerstone Christian the first team to win the tournament from Texas. So only teams from Hawaii and California have won the Ann Kang Tournament. So that's kind of your Snapple fun fact right there. But a very good showing for Miracosta, as I'm probably going to see the Mustangs sometime this season. Maybe. We'll see. But if they're looking good without Charlie Furbringer, and they actually do have a fairly young team. Obviously, they don't have Drew Wright or Tannen Rosenthal. But if they're looking good without Charlie Furbringer and with a fairly young team, I imagine what they're going to look like when they have Charlie Furbringer and once they have everything figured out. Like I said, I obviously can't get too high on the wins, but they can't get too low on the losses. And honestly, for Miracosta, I think they could be a contender in the CIF Southern section. That's going to be for a future show, but I will say this, Miracosta looks legit as always. So that is pretty much that when it comes to high school girls volleyball, and that's pretty much that for everything I have to talk about. Now, obviously this is the Season 4 finale of Set Point, as next week is Season 5. So, obviously we had to end Season 4 off with a high note with having John Speraw as a guest, but next week, or tomorrow, as of this recording, start off with tomorrow. Tomorrow is actually the first AVCA/Taraflex Women's Volleyball Coaches Poll. That will actually be released at noon Pacific time, which I think is convenient for me. And all these polls, or the regular season polls, will be released going forward at noon Pacific time every Monday. So all in all, for the coaches poll, I think it's going to be fun to see the first coaches poll and to see who is where. Obviously, Texas is going to be up there, but I'm interested to see who's going to be number 2. I highly doubt it's going to be San Diego, just because they lost a majority of its core from last year. But we'll see who's number 2 and number 3 and so on and so forth. And that'll pretty much do it for that little reminder right there. And now we can reflect on everything we had of Season 4 of Set Point. It was fun. I got to celebrate my 200th episode of Set Point. I got to attend the Big West Conference Men's Volleyball Championship, or the Big West Conference Tournament altogether, as a member of the media, which I think is awesome. I also kind of got to cover the 3C2A men's volleyball final as a member of the media, even though it kind of took a little convincing and a little bit of, I just won your darn Wi-Fi because your darn gymnasium in your championship gymnasium is so darn difficult to access, and without the Wi-Fi, I can't tweet out updates. Anyway, also, we just had a lot of memorable guests like Sam Schweisky, Mark Pavlik, obviously John Speraw, like we had today. And I had a couple of video interviews with Mark Pavlik and Alan Knight before the NCAA tournament. Ironically, those were the two teams that wound up losing in the semifinals, so oops. But they at least won a NCAA tournament match, so I digress. But other than that, it was just a fun Season 4 for Set Point, and I can't wait to see what Season 5 brings. I will say this, when I do my interviews, I swear by all that is holy, I will have the most, I wouldn't say clearest interviews, but I actually bought like an interview mic where I won't have background noise and whatnot. So, yeah. And also I'm going to try to get my Instagram page booming, just because, well, for starters, I just now got Instagram. I'm only, 1 month on Instagram, as I'm trying to grow that. I'm trying to get on the Instagram game and whatnot. I'm going to try to get Set Point growing more and more like wildfire. I probably shouldn't have used that word. I apologize. Let's say growing like a Venus flytrap, or growing like the worldly tree that it is. Regardless, I really want to grow Set Point, and I think this is the season where Set Point grows. So, we're almost coming up on, this will be my 4-year anniversary for Set Point. So, yeah, next week, I can't really guarantee the specific time of when Set Point is going to start at for next week, because I might actually have another guest, but we shall see. For right now, the determined time will be ... But on that note, that is actually going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room. I did not forget, y'all, Larry B, Mikey Two Guns, who is the host of our Bleepin' City, our Boston show, and David C. Crooks, as he popped into the chat room. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. And also got to give a shout out to Patty Bax. Can't forget about you for listening in. Big thank you one more time to John Speraw for being a guest on Set Point. I really do appreciate him coming on. For my guest, John Speraw, and for the entire iSports Sports Radio family, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. If you're listening live, I just got to tell you, in about less than 20 minutes, Chi-Town Weekly with Adam Karnak will be coming on. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the weekend. I will see you Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And I will see you all this Saturday at Long Beach State for the Pepperdine Long Beach State Women's Volleyball Scrimmage. Have a great week, everybody. Peace!